Friday. Thanks once again for looking us up here at 5 minutes at the Frat House with Frat House Mike and Sidekick as we embark on our 89th straight week here on the most consistent sports rap program on the internet. And we got to get into it right away because I know, Sidekick, you just can't wait to get to that NHL update. So I want to move things along.
Wait.
I want to move things along right away. I hope you're following the show over here, the game we got on over here. I can see you looking up there every once in a while. Hey, let's start it out right away over with motorsports as we always do. And we had kind of a makeup race in NHRA that we'll take a look at down in Atlanta at the Summit Equipment Southern Nationals, which was taking place last weekend. And what happened there was, of course, it was rained out from the week before. And so they made up all the action on Friday and Saturday. And in what has been kind of a topsy-turvy season for funny cars, this week's flavor, well, that was Johnny Gray beating Matt Hagan in the final round on Saturday, topping out at over 314 miles per hour in just over 4 seconds. And that's just the funny car division. How did other things get affected on the NHRA leaderboard? Well, wait till you see how close things have gotten in these division standings. Over in the top fuel dragster division, it continues to be Tony Schumacher at the top over Antron Brown. Only 5 points.
Thanks to Brown's win this weekend.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Despite Johnny Gray's victory, Cruz Pedregon still holds on to that first spot, just 13 points ahead of Matt Hagan. But then Johnny Gray, right now, is in third. In Pro Stock, well, it's still Mike Edwards. But whoa, this division is the one that seems to be running away with it all. And kind of a reverse of what we have seen in seasons past. Edwards holds the top spot by 126 points over Jake Coughlin.
Yeah, he's running away with that one.
He sure is. Well, at least for the moment. Now, we've seen that kind of thing happen in years past and seasons past where things start to tighten up a little bit later. But what's interesting to me is this is kind of a reverse. Normally, it's Pro Stock that always is kind of nip and tuck. In the other two, there's somebody running away. But in the other two divisions, no, not at all. This weekend, we head out to the heartland of the country to, well, appropriately named, Heartland Park, Topeka, to the Kansas Nationals. And, well, we'll bring you those results on that one next week at this time. Let's go take a look at stock car. And Sidekick, NASCAR took us down to Darlington last Saturday night.
The lady in black.
Yep, for a long 367-lap race, albeit it was a fast one with average speeds of 141 miles per hour. And while it certainly appears that it could have, well, perhaps maybe should have been, Kyle Busch's race to win, having led 265 of those laps, in the end it was Matt Kenseth. And, well, Sidekick Matt Kenseth seems to have become this year's Greg Biffle. I mean, for as many times, it seems like every week we're bringing up Matt Kenseth's name. In the end, it was Kenseth that tamed Darlington this year.
Yep.
The remaining top 5 included, hey, how about Denny Hamlin? Denny Hamlin came in second. Jeff Gordon in third. Jimmy Johnson in fourth. Kevin Harvick came in fifth. Kyle Busch ended up in sixth after another run-in with Casey Kane in lap 335.
And
there's something screwy around here.
She's doing a great job.
Going backward, isn't she? All right, leaderboard changes this week. Not too many. Jimmy Johnson stays at number 1. Carl Edwards continues to stay at number 2. But now Matt Kenseth takes over at number 3 at the number 3 spot. And that subsequently moved Dale Jr. Down to 4 and Clint Boyer down to 5. So there's where the leaderboard stands at this point right now.
Yep. The biggest losers of the week were Paul Menard, who was in the top 10.
Okay.
He's now out of the top 10.
Right.
And Greg Biffle dropped 2 spots.
Where's Biffle standing at this point now?
Biffle is somewhere down in the teens.
He's down there, okay.
And then the biggest movers, I mean, surprise, surprise, Denny Hamlin up 4 spots.
Yeah.
But, of course, we would expect that now that he's back in racing again. That free fall that he had going is going to end. And then Juan Pablo Montoya was up 3
Interesting
spots.
conversation they were having prior to the race last week on Fox was, you know, mathematically, what does Hamlin have to do? It seems a monstrous task. in order to make the chase.
Yeah.
But in fact, mathematically, it is doable. And with performances like we saw him turn here, if he were able to pull a couple more of those, it would seem to me he's right back in the shake of things.
You know, I'm not, like you said, he's not mathematically eliminated.
Right.
And I think it is, we've seen Denny Hamlin run well before.
Right.
It was just last year or the year before where he was very dominant.
Right.
So I think it's within Denny Hamlin's ability to get back into the chase.
Yep.
Or at least get a wild card spot and earn his way into the chase.
I think one of the things they said that he's going to have to do is probably win, too.
Yeah, he's going to have to
win too.
He's going to have to get some wins or string together a lot of.
I mean, starting out the first week with a top 2 finish is not bad at all. But how about this one? No off-track dramas this week that we can talk about. I guess that's a good thing because we get a packed show. But no off-track dramas this week in NASCAR, with maybe perhaps the exception of Casey Kane just throwing some barbs over Kyle Busch's way. But in the absence of any controversial fodder, let's go over and take a look at our Frat House Sports NASCAR Fantasy Leaderboard. And while I had a very good race with 3 of my top drivers running in the top 5 for almost all of the race, it wasn't enough to put me on the board. And, well, Team Blood Pack there.
Dropped.
You're dropping again, dude.
Yeah, I dropped again. So.
Listen.
Well, you know why? Because I took my own advice, and I took Kenseth off my roster, and I put Biffle on.
Yes, he was whining about this. I just want everybody to know he was whining about this pre-show. All right?
I goofed.
Yeah, he did goof. Yes, he did. Listen, we're going to take a break from fantasy, which means no fantasy updates this week. As well, yes, we do have a race, but it's a exhibition race, and it's an exciting one. I mean, make no mistake about it. It's an exciting race. Down at Charlotte Motor Speedway, we've got the Sprint Cup All-Star Race on Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern Time on Fox. This is $1 million purse. Is that right?
Yep. And NASCAR, because they like to keep things different with this race every year, they like to tweak it a little bit.
A little bit of controversy over how they're working the rules on the, what do they call it, the showdown or?
Well, no, they didn't really mess with the showdown, but the qualifying for the All-Star race, what they did this year is they harkened back to the old days of NASCAR. So qualifying for the All-Star race is going to consist of 3 laps, a mandatory 4-tire change, and they're lifting the speed limit on pit road. So there will be, only for qualifying, there will be no speed limit on pit road. So you basically can come in there as fast as you want, lock up your brakes.
Oh, my God.
You know, and then and the driver with the lowest overall time will get the pole position for the start of the All-Star race.
I had read an article, however, there was a bit of a controversy over one of the changes that was made that some people felt was actually allowing the possibility for Danica to get into the All-Star race. You didn't see that article, I guess.
No.
I'll have to find that one. I'll make sure.
If I had, I'm sure I would have been all over that.
Okay, I'll make sure it gets up on the Frat House Facebook page, and there's another reason for you to make sure you get over and like our Frat House Facebook page. I will find that article. I will get it up there, and I'll clarify what exactly I'm talking about.
She can be in the race next year. Because
she got to earn it, man. Well, she won a race. She won a race. Or
she had the pole.
She had the pole at Daytona.
The pole for Daytona.
Right.
So
that
next
automatically
year
gets
she
her
has
in.
earned her way in.
That's correct. Right. That automatically gets her in. Right. Okay. All right, let's go take a look at Major League Baseball. And it's hard to believe that we are already 1/4 of the way through the Major League Baseball season. And having made that observation, well, let's take a look at the early season division leaders. Over in the American League, look at here. The New York Yankees have taken over in the AL East. That AL East, though, very, very competitive. They are just 2 games in front of the Orioles. Boston just right behind the Orioles as well. In the Central, the Detroit Tigers stay at the top. Just a half game in front of the hot Cleveland Indians, who are 7-3 in their last 10. In the West, the Texas Rangers have put some distance between themselves now, and the Oakland A's now 7 games ahead of the A's.
And the A's are tied with the Mariners.
Yes, the Mariners I actually think are a rather surprising team, and I look for them. I think if they stay where they're going, I think they could have a second half run. in the National League, it's still the cooling Atlanta Braves, just one game ahead of the Washington Nationals. Yep. Your St. Louis Cardinals stay in front in the Central, 2.5 games in front of the Cincinnati Reds, and in the West, the Giants just a half game in front of the, hey, who thought this one? Arizona D-backs.
Oh, D-backs? I thought it was the Rockets.
Arizona D-backs.
Oh, my bad.
Okay. A bit earlier this evening, we checked in with our Frat House sports friend and Phillies analyst, Frank Klose from Philadelphia.com. And we had a chance to chat with him about the state of the Phillies and a few other Major League Baseball issues. And so what we want to do is bring you that chat right now. Frank, thanks so much for being here with us tonight on 5 Minutes at the Frat House. We appreciate it. And to get a little bit of, quarter season MLB chat in. And that's about where we are. Most teams have played about 40 games, and that kind of signals the quarter mark of the season, which is difficult to believe when you think about it. We're only in mid-May. Looking at Major League Baseball right now, looking at both leagues, both the American League and the National League, surprise teams? Would you say there's one big surprise team that jumps out to you? And then, contrary to that, what would be, say, a big disappointment team right now in either league?
Well, I think for one surprise team, we can first look at the Boston Red Sox. Off to a great start. I don't think anybody anticipated that just yet. Although, with their recent injuries to their bullpen, I'm not really sure how long they can sustain it. Hopefully they'll be able to add a piece. But certainly I would put them among the surprises and the really a neat indication of just what kind of turning the page on some players can do for a major league franchise. If I have to look for a disappointment, certainly the Los Angeles Angels would have to come to mind. After adding Josh Hamilton, everybody thought that they would walk their way through myself included, thought they would walk their way through the American League West. Yep. And here they are today at 15-25 and 11 games out of first place. So I think that there we get some surprises and some disappointments.
Frank, let me go into the Angels for a moment. When does that team sound the alarm? Because, you're absolutely right. We were talking about this the other night when I was on with Jim Williams on his Touch the Ball program. And I was making the comment that they are absolutely the most disappointing team. This was a team that everybody thought, in fact, I had them going to the World Series. When does that team sound the alarm? How much more time do they have?
Well, they're running out. As they learned last year, they could lose the division in April. Because if you remember last year, they had a terrible April, and only then did they start moving on from the Bobby Abreu's and on to the Mike Trouts of the world. And they ended up finishing with 89 wins and just barely missed the playoffs. So I think after they learned last year, April matters a lot. And I think it's time now. Can't let Joe Blanton make another start. His days were done 2 years ago. And here he sits at 0-7 with an ERA over 6. Right. They have to do something right away. Find a way to disable Blanton, or they just can't continue.
What about the Yankees, real quick? Since we were talking about surprise teams, I actually have them as my surprise team.
Yeah, the Yankees are a good one to have as your surprise team. With all the injuries, a lot of people thought they would simply fall apart. I tend to think that the injuries might be helping them a little bit. As we've seen with a lot of franchises, the ones that hang on to their older players, the Alex Rodriguez's of the world, that they just won't be able to get rid of course. Yeah. But getting them out of the way and opening up the opportunities for some others has certainly helped, I think, and got them out of that little stagnant mode.
Let's jump over and take a look at the Philadelphia Phils. You're the owner and the editor of Philadelphia.com, where you pay an awful lot of attention, obviously, to what's going on with that particular team. Halladay, that's been the big story. Number one, how big a blow is this to the Phils? Number two, can they recover? Number three, do we ever see Roy Halladay pitch in a Phils uniform again, or maybe even for anybody?
Well, first, how big a blow is it? I think that actually kind of helps. Another example, when we went into the year, we didn't know exactly what we would get from Roy Halladay, and a lot of people really just felt that he was just old and his days were over. Well, now that we know for sure that something specific is wrong and it's something that can be fixed, it gets an performing Halladay out of the Phillies rotation, and 2, it gives somebody else an opportunity to step it up a little bit, and 3, it kind of settles the matter. So nobody is holding their breath anymore, wondering what Roy Halladay was going to do. And so far, they've had a respectable start from John Pettibone, who's pitching in his absence and probably will just continue to, he actually came in for John Lannon, but he's clearly going to be taking that slot.
Yep.
They'll just ride it as long as they possibly can. As to whether or not we've seen the last of Roy Halladay, it sounds like of all the things that could have happened, this is the best possible scenario for him. There was actually something physically wrong that they can fix. Now, how he recovers from that's still a little bit unclear. But if the reports are as they say they are, that in 6 to 8 weeks he can start a throwing program, the doctors seem to think, and Roy Halladay himself at his own press conference seemed to think, that this is something that can be fixed and he will get to throw again. And I think that the key words that we heard in the Roy Halladay press conference was that his doctors thought they could set him back 2 or 3 years. Which certainly 2-3 years ago he was winning Cy Young awards. So,
Right.
That's I think it's good for the Phillies for right now. It's good for Roy Halladay for later. He may not get to pitch a little bit this September. We'll see. But it sounds like he'll at least have the opportunity to try to pitch again. And what we get out of him, we'll see. But it sounds like he's intent on pitching.
Now, follow-up question to that. We know most professional players are very, what's the word I'm looking for? Competitive. And we saw Halladay start out with his rough start, and then after a couple games come up and say, hey, I'm not feeling well in my arm, had it looked at, found out he had a bone spur, needing to have a surgery. Do you think he should have spoken up sooner and said, hey, I think something's going on, instead of kind of keeping it to himself and going through and letting up all these runs, knowing that he wasn't really feeling the way he should feel?
Well, I think in some ways I do believe him when he said he didn't feel pain really at first. It sounds like it wasn't until that bone spur kept rubbing against some of his key ligaments, that he really started to feel the pain. So we saw him get off to a little bit of a rough start. Then he had a couple of really decent starts against the St. Louis Cardinals, for example. That was his best start of the season. So you start to ask yourself, well, did he turn the corner? And it wasn't until after that he started feeling a little bit of pain. So he only tried a couple starts with the pain. Athletes feel pain all the time. I don't think he was ready to just, let pain keep him from starting at least a little bit until it was clear he wasn't helping the team. But he did say he started feeling that pain in his start against Pittsburgh Pirates, where he pitched pretty well. So in his mind, he might not have felt that it was anything that wrong. And certainly when he was lit up against the Miami Marlins, giving up 9 runs, we knew that was it.
Yep.
And he knew that was it.
Yep. This team overall, Frank, just the way I describe it, it just seems to be slogging along. And a very uninspiring type of baseball for fans to watch. In fact, it's actually difficult. For fans, this is not what we're used to. Is there going to be anything that's going to turn this around, or is what we're seeing, this is it?
Well, one interesting thing that I think goes unnoticed is the Phillies lead the league in quality starts from their pitchers, which sounds kind of outrageous considering we saw Roy Halladay get lit up like we saw him get lit up this season. We also have had some rough starts from the 1-6 Cole Hamels. I have to think that that Cole Hamels will get straightened out. Earlier today, Charlie Manuel said Cole Hamels is trying too hard, and then that might be it. He's not going to be a 1-6 pitcher all season. I think that's pretty certain. What is very uncertain is the Phillies' offense.
Yeah,
they seem to be reaching for any possible improvements that they can. Playing John Mayberry over Ben Revere. there might be a little bit of sign of desperation. Now, earlier in the season, people thought, well, when Carlos Ruiz gets back, when Delman Young joins the team, it'll get a little bit better. But it's really not. So I think that they're probably going to have to look internally to try to boost the offense a little bit.
Right.
We could be seeing Darren Ruff soon, who's doing a good job at AAA Lehigh Valley. Has a lot of power and is playing a respectable outfield now. Keep in mind, they said it was his outfield play that he was the reason he started in the minors to begin with. But he's somebody clearly they could turn to first for some offense. And who knows? We see veteran major league players get picked up off the scrap heap and make an offensive contribution all the time, including this year with like a Vernon Wells, for example. So there might be somebody out there the Phillies can plug in that will give them a little bit of offense, but it's the offense that's going to make all the difference. Because let's face it, Jimmy Rollins, Ryan Howard, and Chase Utley, even though they've been contributing some, it's definitely not what they used to.
Yeah, you're not kidding. I mean, really, when it comes right down to it, the fans, I think, would accept this team a whole heck of a lot more if we saw some offensive production. We would accept bad outings from Cole Hamels. But right now, our two best hitters are Chase Utley, who'd have thunk that one, and Mike Young, who's doing nothing but getting singles. That's it. And not really playing a very good defensive third base. Let's call it what it is. This team needs offense someplace, and I think that's the only thing that's going to save them at this point.
Yeah, the problem is where do you stick it? I mean, it used to be that and I will point out too that the Phillies have 14 of the last Phillies home runs were solo home runs.
Right.
They lost people getting on base ahead of them. Say what you will about I'm not saying that Jason Worth and Shane Victorino should have been re-signed, but in their glory years, those guys were getting on base, and the other guys were driving them in. Now it seems like it's solo home run or nothing.
All right.
Well, I'll tell you one place the Phillies fans are going to want to stick it if they don't get this team turned around.
Yeah. Well, everybody's...
I'll leave that for, for imagination. Yeah.
Well, everybody's screaming for Charlie's head, and frankly, I don't view this as Charlie's problem. I frankly put more of the blame at the feet of the general manager, but that's just me personally. So everybody's going to have their different perspective on it.
And keep in mind, too, that the Phillies aren't really that far out of it.
I know. That's the whole thing that's crazy about the thing is that we're talking about it like as if, they're dead in the water, and yet what? Right now, I think they're only, 4 games out of first place?
Well, they're 3 games under 500 and 3.5 out of first place.
There you go.
And meanwhile, the Atlanta Braves, who once started the season 12-1, have been 10-17 since.
Correct. Very cool.
So,
Yep.
We have the Washington Nationals 2 games over 500, so nobody really is doing much of anything. So it's possible that the Phillies could get hot, and next thing you know, that they can be slightly more mediocre than the others. But they're certainly not out of it. That's the kicker
That's
at all.
That's the crazy part of it. Exactly right. Exactly right. Frank, thanks for being with us here tonight. We'll get you back, I guess, just about the halfway part. And I'll see you tomorrow on the radio show, huh?
Yep. Thank you, Mike.
All right, I appreciate it, Frank. Thanks very much. Take care.
Have a good one.
You too. All right there, and many, many thanks to our friend Frank Klose for being with us this evening and bringing us all of his terrific baseball insights. Really love having Frank with us.
It's time again for Frat House Mike's Screwball Stories.
All right. That's what it is. It's time for my screwy stories in baseball. And it's kind of become over, I guess maybe the past 2 years now, kind of become a Frat House Sports requirement that we must bring you a weekly Miami Marlins and Manny Ramirez screwball story. And so let's keep that regulation in order. And we'll start it off with the Miami Marlins. Many teams frequently team up with Major League Baseball, MLB, to promote their team through the Ultimate Fan Contest. The Marlins, in their infinite wisdom, thought it would be a good idea to throw their hat in the ring, asking their fans to nominate themselves as the Ultimate Marlins fan, awarding them a 3-day trip to New York to participate in the MLB Fan Cave. I suspected something went terribly, terribly wrong. Some of the few public comments that were left included things like, "You guys have fans? There were others that said, you guys have no fans. Do I hide in shame in this cave? Is this cave where Loria and Samson are hiding? This organization might just be the funniest joke ever. Another great move by the Miami Marlins. Congratulations, guys. Here's my fulfillment of the second part of our regulation. Time for Manny Ramirez. As we know, Ramirez is playing over in Taiwan. And in typical Manny being Manny style, he went for a slide into second base and he missed it by that much. The video here is just priceless, along with the Taiwanese play-by-play announcers who, despite the fact that we have no idea what they're saying, you cannot understand them, nonetheless you can hear their sense of humor as they laugh at Manny's attempts.
I believe it was something paraphrased about
Manny 太早滑垒了，还没有到达2垒垒包，整个人就滑在地上啊，束手就擒，结果人家触杀出局。如果朝着2垒再晚点滑的话，会 safe 的。
这个球他就安全上。
哇 ，Manny 也会进入到本周棒球周报的5大好球了哦，这个真的糗了。这么早一滑哇！球了，还有5大。
Of course, then even funny is when he goes back to the dugout, he high fives everybody.
Yeah.
Like, hey,
nice job, Manny. Way to go!
平洋教练怎么解读说 Manny 怎么会那么早滑嘞？他觉得应该就
One more view
他认为这个球应该会传到位了。
哦。Whoops.
That much. Missed it by that much. Many teams across baseball, in fact, many teams across all of sports will run a major annual charity event. The struggling Houston Astros, which many have described as a AA team, are no different. For many seasons now, the Houston Astros wives have gotten together to run their black ties and baseball caps gala, which has raised money for the Houston Area Women's Center. Well, not this year. This year, it was canceled. Well, not exactly canceled. According to the Houston Astros Vice President of Community Relations, who was quoted as saying, there was no event canceled because there was no event planned, because the wives group no longer had any wives in it.
Sounds like maybe they should move to Utah and become the Utah Astros. There's plenty of wives floating around there.
Oh my goodness, that is a bit of a... They've said that Houston's in a youth movement, you know, and maybe there's indication of that right there. But it's been rumored since spring training that New York Mets manager Terry Collins might be on a very short, hot seat. And hard to believe that seat may have just gotten a bit hotter this week when manager of the NL East's fourth place team, a rebuilding team nonetheless, responded to the vocal and outspoken New York fans who consistently question every move the manager has made. He responded the other day, I don't answer to fans. They don't play this game. They have no idea what goes on. They have no idea what goes on in there. They have absolutely no idea what it means to be a professional teammate at this level. Well, you know, I got to be honest with you. I might agree with, you know, in some parts with Collins' comments, and it seems he has a right to express his displeasure with the constant fan pressure. But it seems to me that Terry needs to kind of realize that, dude, you're in New York, okay? Is this a smart move to be making these comments? I mean, it kind of goes with the territory. And there might have been a slightly better way to couch your sentiment.
You have to ask me nicely.
Somebody should have asked him nicely. I mean, I don't know if that's the smartest way to go about it. I don't think that exactly reveres you to the fans anymore. Okay, there you have it. There's this week's screwy baseball stories. But listen, before we leave baseball, let's go take a look at our Frat House Sports Facebook post of the week, which, as usual, was the most viewed post of the week. And it was a Today in Sports History post that I put up the other day about the one and only day in 1977 that Atlanta Braves owner Ted Turner took over the team as manager. before MLB brass stepped in and put an end to that quite quickly, stating that anyone holding stock in a club may not also serve as its manager. All right, and that was our most viewed post. It's actually a fascinating historical little story. Ted Turner actually thought he was going to run that team, for the remainder of that season and maybe into the future. He actually believed that. And he had some terrific comments coming back at Major League Baseball, which go to the Frat House Sports Facebook page, hit us a like, and then you can see what those comments were. They were hysterical at the time. All right, there you have it. There's our post for this week. Keep the posts coming and keep the comments coming over at Frat House Sports on our Facebook. All right, Sidekick.
Round ball update time.
Yep, NBA, we're in the second round now of the playoffs.
Yep.
And in fact, we're finishing up the second round. In fact, many series are already done. So give us the update on round ball.
Well, last year's sweethearts, the Oklahoma City Thunder have exited the playoffs this year, ousted by Memphis 4-1.
Can you imagine this? I brought this up so many places, so many times. Memphis Grizzlies, they were the number 5 seed. Look at what they are doing.
They're the Cinderellas.
They are certainly the Cinderellas. You got to give them a tip of that. They knocked off the number 1.
And then we got Golden State and Sacramento, or San Antonio, I'm sorry.
Right, San Antonio.
Game 6 is tonight, and if necessary, a Game 7 will be played Sunday at 3:30 on ABC.
And Golden State is leading that 3 games.
San Antonio is up 3-2. Or did I get it backwards?
You're right, San Antonio. You're right. San Antonio is leading at 3-2. Okay.
It's, as you would call it, an elimination game.
Let's not. We don't have enough time to go into all that. We'll bring that up next week. But what is an elimination game? We'll get into that conversation next week.
The Bulls have exited the playoffs.
Yes.
Just too hot in the kitchen. The Heat eliminated them 4-1.
Yep.
And we have the Knicks and the Pacers. Pacers are up 3-1.
Yeah.
Game 5 tonight. Game 6, if necessary, on Saturday at 8 p.m. on ESPN. And a Game 7 on Monday at 8 p.m. on TNT, if necessary.
If necessary, because make no mistake, right now the Indiana Pacers are leading that series 3-1. That's the number 3 seed against the number 2. A little bit surprising there that the Knicks are down. But there you have it.
And now I'm going to take a nap because it's NHL update time.
Just for a couple seconds, listen, the second round of the NHL. I'm not going to be on it that long, dude. There aren't that many games left. The second round of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs have just gotten underway with 2 games scheduled for this evening. And so let's take a look at where the current 4 series are. There's only 4 series going at this point right now. Stand at the minute in the West. The number 1 Chicago Blackhawks are up 1-0 in their series over the number 7 Detroit Red Wings. The number 5 Los Angeles Kings lead 1-0 over the number 6 San Jose Sharks. Over in the East, the number 1 Pittsburgh Penguins are up 1-0, currently over the number 7 Ottawa Senators. And the series between the number 4 Boston Bruins and number 6 New York Rangers getting underway this evening, and that's the game we have up over here just above my shoulder. All right, and there we go. That's our show for this week, complete with all kinds of stuff and guest appearances and everything else that you can imagine. That's 89 in the books. We'll be coming back at you for number 90. But before we do that, let's run around real quick and make sure that you help us out by enjoying all of the people that help us out. How about that? Fan Junkies, fanjunkies.net, social media for sports nuts like you and I. Get over there, sign up, completely free, fanjunkies.net. Jonathan and I, we're at our 103rd show. 103rd show, so we've broken the 100 mark. Fan Junkies Radio over on Blog Talk Radio, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Of course, we got a whole network of programs. We got Sports Blogger Radio with my buddies John and Scott up there in Boston. They come on Thursday afternoons at 12 noon on Fan Junkies Radio Network, and of course then my Frat House Saturdays on Saturdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So Fan Junkies Radio over on Blog Talk Radio. Make sure you check that one out. Our buddies down in the Baltimore, D.C. area, herbfm.com. Check them out as well. They rebroadcast our programs here, and they also rebroadcast some of the Fan Junkies programs, and we appreciate that. Thanks very much, Chris. We're trying to help you out as much as possible. Get over there to herbfm.com. CLW83, Jim Williams, Carl, and DC over there at CLW83. I was just on there the other night with their Touch 'em All program, and great time we have over there. And, of course, they also rebroadcast our 5 Minutes at the Frat House and Fan. It's all kind of interconnected. Are you getting the idea here? It's all interconnected. Yep.
It's a big family.
It is a big, big family, and we want you to be part of it. Last but not least, don't forget FratHouseSports.net, which is where you can find all the videos and also our written sports editorial commentary. All that good stuff that we bring you here vocally, you can get in text version. It's so much fun.
Yep.
Isn't it? All right. We're going to be right back here with you next week for number 90. Number 90, as we're counting them down ourselves, nearer and nearer to number 100. So, you know what you got to do for me? You got to keep us real, you got to keep us live, and you got to keep us going. We'll see you next week. Take care.